if you look at our board, the last 6 directors that have been brought onto the board are all women. And so from the chairman to our group CEO to all of us as executive leaders, we are focused on ensuring that women are able to play a role in tech and play leadership roles in tech. When we invested in iFood as a group, it was a startup business. Today, it's doing 1.5 billion orders per annum. And, and this is all with the use of AI. People with startup businesses really struggle to raise capital because the type of capital that you need is not debt capital. What you need is real equity.
Hello, welcome to ITWeb TV. My name is Mzekandaba. Our next guest needs little introduction. She's a business leader, she's a trailblazer in the finance industry, and she now leads Naspers as a CEO of Naspers South Africa. I'm of course talking about Phuti Mahanyele-Dabengwa. She is here to chat to us about Naspers business operations in SA, South Africa holding the G20 presidency, and what it's like, just being a woman in tech. Phuti, welcome. Hello.
Thank you very much, Simnikiwe. It's wonderful to be here, even on this cold, cold day.
It is a bit of a cold one today, but really thank you for being with us. And also it's Women's Month, so it's great to have you as our guest.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Yeah.
Phuti, I mentioned that, you're a finance trailblazer. So you started off in finance, your career started off there. But since 2019, you've been the CEO of Naspers South Africa, which is a tech internet, multinational company. So just to hear from you, how has the transition been from, moving to finance to now focusing more on tech, like a tech business?
Yeah. So it's really been interesting. I think starting out in finance has really been very good from a foundational perspective. Because when you're in the finance industry, you're working in a whole host of different industries, but just financing them. So I started out in project and infrastructure finance. And then when I was in Chanduka, we were in private equity, corporate finance, those types of transactions. But it was always within the realm of different particular sectors. So whether you were buying, for instance, and when we were doing the acquisition of McDonald's, or when we were doing the acquisition of the Coca-Cola bottling business, or whether it was a mining asset, it was always, looking at different types of financing. But, it was always within the realm of corporate finance and private equity. But it was within different sectors. Now, moving into Naspers, I was now into one specific sector. But what I love about the technology industry is the fact that it actually impacts on all of society. So it impacts across industries, once again. And so it's a hugely exciting area to be in because it impacts on all of us, irrespective of what sector, whatever it is that we do in life. The world of AI is one that is impacting on all of our lives. And so to be actively involved in this industry is something that I have found to be empowering and hugely enlightening, particularly when I have conversations with people who are concerned about issues of how AI could potentially impact on jobs and all of that. But the reality is that with the presence of AI and with us being able to learn more and grow more, it actually creates the ability for us to focus on different types of jobs that are a lot more, in line with the way that we should be thinking, as opposed to rudimentary day-to-day type of tasks that can be done by machines. Yeah.
A lot of leaders have said that, especially like tech is everywhere. So you can't, you don't think about it that way. So you raise a very good point there as well. But just to also just further unpack being in the tech industry, we know that it's male populated, but women also do dominate in this space. So how does it feel for you to be part of those women that are actually leading up companies that are in tech?
I really enjoy being in tech, and I particularly enjoy being in tech within the Naspers and Process group of organizations, because these are organizations that really do empower women. So if I look at our teams here in South Africa, 73% of the leadership in our team here in South Africa is made up of women. And,
That's very impressive.
yeah, and over 65% of the employees that we have in the corporate part of our business here in South Africa are women. So women leadership is really, really key, not only in what we say, but in what we do. If you look at our board, the last 6 directors that have been brought onto the board are all women. And so from the chairman to our group CEO to all of us as executive leaders, we are focused on ensuring that women are able to play a role in tech and play leadership roles in tech. And so it's wonderful to be in an organization that is pushing for that. But, it's also good to see how other organizations within the tech industry have also been focused on that area.
And you mentioned like board leadership. Just to hear from you in terms of around how would you describe your leadership style? Because you you are the CEO of Naspers SA. Maybe if you can just use 3 words to describe your leadership style for
Sure.
our viewers.
I would say that my leadership style is one that I think is, I would hope other people would say is empowering, because I'm the type of leader that really seeks to work with people who are really good at what they do. Because I've never enjoyed having the type of leader who would be all over me in terms of what I need to do. I've always enjoyed having the ability to think through what I need to do. And so in leading people, I also give them that space. Obviously, in cases where there is a little bit more support required, I will provide that as well. But I really like to work with people who are able to lead things and, lead projects and all of that. I've never enjoyed the mollycoddling of people. People are there as professionals. They've studied, they've worked. And so when they're in an environment, they need to have the space to do their work. So I would hope that if you were talking to someone that is within my team, that they would say that I'm an empowering leader. And I do also take risks with people. I will give someone an opportunity to be responsible for an area they've never been responsible for. And to hire and do whatever it is that they believe needs to be done in resolving whatever the solution may be. Many times, it works. But obviously there will be times when, that doesn't work, and
Yeah.
it goes with it.
It's part of the job. And I suppose it's also part of being a leader, right?
That's it,
Those are the risks that you take. But you also mentioned, like we know that you serve on various boards, including being an executive director on the Naspers board, recently being appointed to that. So how do you balance it all? Like, how do you do it? And also, how does that experience influence or impact your decision making and how you go about your current role?
So I think I'm able to balance it well. But the reason I'm able to balance it well is because I don't have things that distract me too much from my formal job. So I was on the board of Vodacom, sure, many, many, many years ago. I think in the early 2000s was the first time I came onto the board. And then, but then when my recently deceased husband became the group CEO of MTN, I then had to come off the board because of the conflict of interest. And so I then came back onto the board when he left MTN. They asked me to come back to the board again. And it had really transformed. I mean, Vodacom had gone from being just well, I wouldn't say just but a mobile, organization to really being focused on becoming more of a tech type of organization. And I think that when you look at any organization, irrespective of industry, whether they're in mining, financial resource, whatever sector it is, tech ought to be a part of what they're focusing on in terms of their strategy moving forward. And so it's really been very interesting being on the Vodacom board, looking at the extent to which Shamil Jusuf has been able to grow that business and supporting him from a board perspective. But what I'm thankful for is that the manner in which that is managed, the dates, the role, and on all of the responsibilities there don't impact on my main job. And, these are things that I'm able to do within the time that I'm able to allocate to that. And so, it's been enjoyable.
That's good.
Yeah.
You touched on how companies, like I think we're seeing a lot of even the telcos becoming tech companies. What do you think that, like, what does that signal for South African companies, like how I suppose it's a progression and how they seeing tech as the next evolution? What do you, as a businesswoman, not how does that, what do you think? What do you think of that? What do you make of that? Yeah.
I think it's very good. Mobile telephony organizations most certainly need to look at tech because as we move forward, that is very much a part of our everyday life. And so for any organization, they need to be looking. I mean, we need to take into account the fact that South Africa has over 100% mobile penetration, right? And of that, penetration, many of those people have smartphones. Now, people who have smartphones immediately have access to products and services online. And so if you are not able to get your business to be available online, you're losing out on a lot of those opportunities. And so I think it makes sense for a lot of those organizations to be able to move into the sector of the tech sector, and it's something that we find very useful. If I look at our business Take a Lot here in South Africa, the fact that we have this high level of mobile connectivity in South Africa is excellent for our business. I mean, the extent to which we've seen, Take a Lot being able to grow, the penetration being able to grow on the back of that is something that has been very valuable for our business here in South Africa.
Phuti, you spoke about AI at the start of our conversation. And I know that AI is a critical part of the Naspers business, as well as how your group CEO has also indicated that. How does it then translate on a local front? What are Naspers SA's what is Naspers SA's business strategy around AI?
Yeah. So AI is a big part of our business. And even if I look at our media business and looking at Take a Lot, and then looking even at our classifieds businesses here in South Africa, we are all focused on AI, and it's really helped us in terms of us being able to streamline our businesses, focus on areas that are of importance, but also to be able to get insights, consumer insights that are valuable to ensure that we can really be able to provide the information and the products that our consumers require. And I think it is really with AI that we've been able to really ensure that we have proper integration of services, that we are really able to, it's been good to see how, from a delivery perspective, we've been able to get such efficiencies with the use of AI as well. So route optimization, looking at a number of different aspects of our business. And it's on the back of this that we've seen, for instance, businesses such as iFood being able to scale from, when we invested in iFood as a group, it was a startup business. Today, it's doing 1.5 billion orders per annum. And this is all with the use of AI. Now, the difference that I think Fabricio Bloisi has really brought also is just to ensure that we are integrating our business, that we're able to ensure that we are working, looking at multiple fronts. So as an example, if you look at iFood, whilst it's a food delivery business, they also are providing access to financial services, providing credit to the entrepreneurs that are available on the platform. Really providing access to a number of different services that are available within our businesses. And so, we've really been focused on this area of ensuring that we have our businesses able to work together so that we can provide the best services to our consumers.
So we can say AI is alive and well within the Naspers business operations. Yeah.
100%. 100%. This is what is driving our business forward. It is what is growing our business. We have had profitability, of significant scale. I mean, if I look, for instance, at iFood, they were able to grow their profitability by 71% just, in these last results. If you look at our classifieds business, they were able to grow at like 63%. So it's really been, and it's with the use of AI, with the AI insights, all the different models that we are running within the group. And we have a team of now around 1,000 colleagues who are focused on AI, and they go into different parts of the businesses in the group, looking at different solutions that they can bring to bear to ensure that we're able to provide the best products to our consumers, and best services, and doing it within the right timing as well. So with the use of AI, we are able to get a sense of, what it is that you as our consumer would most prefer on a Wednesday afternoon, for us to be able to sell to you. There's a lot of consumer insights that we're able to get for the benefit of our consumers. Ethical AI is something that's of importance to us. And so with everything that we do, we're ensuring that ethics is a high part of it as well. And so, yeah, that is what we are really focused on. Yeah.
Okay. And but if we just shift to, we previously Naspers had the foundry, and you guys worked a lot with early stage startups, early stage businesses. What did that experience reveal to you in terms of what's happening within the startup slash early stage business ecosystem, South Africa's ecosystem, that is in SA? Yeah.
So the early stage and startup business is something that is of critical importance in a developing nation like South Africa, and actually the whole continent. We don't have South Africa is still, and I'm not speaking badly about our banking sector. I think we have an excellent banking sector, as we all know. But from a funding perspective, particularly for startups and early stage businesses, we do as a country still tend to be quite conservative. And so from that perspective, what you do find is that people with startup businesses really struggle to raise capital, because the type of capital that you need is not debt capital. What you need is real equity, where people and even grants for some businesses, just for them to be able to start, because we have a lot of tech creators. But they need to have funders who are going to be there with them, and for a short period of time, allowing them to grow without focusing on profitability. And then obviously, as the business matures, then being able to focus on profitability of those businesses. But in South Africa and the African continent, we don't have enough early stage and startup capital, and that is a big stumbling block, not only for the continent but also just for us as the future. I often say that when you think about it, that if Adrian Gore had not been able to garner support as a young actuary to build up his insurance business, we wouldn't have this big discovery business which has provided solutions to so many South Africans, for so many years. But it required someone to believe in him as an entrepreneur, and that is what we need for many startup entrepreneurs. And I'm very glad that he actually, and I think given his own journey, has played a big role. So I also sit on the SME board, where we deal with startup and early stage enterprises. And I'm on that board because Naspers was an early investor, in that we were the biggest investor in the beginning stages of the SME fund. And so, that is an entity that has focused on ensuring that we provide access to capital to these early stage and startup organizations in South Africa. And when you do so, you need to also recognize that, not every organization is going to be a huge success, right? You need to make room for the fact that there will be failures. You will lose capital. But that's the area of entrepreneurship. And so, that is something that is of importance to us as an organization, as Naspers, because of the fact that our background has always been in investing in businesses at an early stage. If you look at some of our most successful businesses that we own, it's businesses that we invested in while they were still startups, while they were, still at early stages. And so it's important to support startups and early stage businesses. And that is an area that continues to be a focal point for me. And I think, whilst we don't have the foundry as an active player, we do have our investments within the foundry. And so we continue to engage with organizations such as Naked and others who are funded, by the Naspers Foundry, in ensuring that they can be able to continue to have success in their businesses. But beyond that, as a group, we have also we started this last year in India, where we looked at supporting women-owned businesses, startup businesses, and early stage businesses. And we when we put out the ad in India, we thought it would just garner just a little bit of attention, and we were astounded by the numbers of applicants that we had. And so we have continued with that. We're now going to be bringing that here to South Africa.
I was gonna ask, is there any chance it'll come to SA?
Yes. And we'll be making an announcement soon as well with respect to that.
All right.
And really focusing on women entrepreneurs. And this will be we will really be running a competitive process where we want to select a select number of 3 or 4 organizations who will then receive some capital, which will hopefully they'll be able to use in their businesses. But part of this is also to create the focus on these businesses so that they can have recognition from other funders within our environments, so that they can be able to scale. Because for them to scale, they need funders to be behind them. So it's an important area for us to be able to focus on.
And do you think that then Phuti will create a space where we'll have like a thriving tech startup ecosystem? Because if let's say women-led businesses are receiving the funding and the recognition, then that surely should translate to more of a thriving tech ecosystem with tech businesses coming up from South Africa.
100%, 100%. I think by us working on projects such as this, I think it's a type of initiatives that you'll see other organizations also doing. And what I hope is that it will stimulate also the funding side, the private equity funds, other funders to be able to, the debt funders, other funders to be able to look and see that these are businesses with potential. The fact that Naspers was able to recognize this particular organization hopefully will then indicate that this is a potentially investable organization for them to consider as well.
And maybe that will then translate to having our own, South African unicorn. Like we need one of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to have, and I think it's within the horizon.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's most certainly there. When we have organizations that have really shown themselves to be potential organizations to become unicorns.
And great ideas. They come up with absolutely the best ideas, and then you think, why can't you just get to that, to that stage? But it'll come.
Yeah.
It's
We need to support them.
Putty, just to shift to more of the e-commerce market, we're seeing there's a bit of growth. Well, there's been quite substantial growth in the last couple of years, particularly here in South Africa, and I suppose during the COVID pandemic as well. That's what drove a lot of people to buy online. What do you make of these developments that we're seeing, and what would you say has spurred this on?
It really has been wonderful to see how we've seen our businesses being able to grow. In the beginning, I think certainly in the COVID period, we knew that it was a situation where people had no other choice and therefore had to buy products online. But it's been really good to see that we've been able to continue with the growth of consumers, seeing the reliance, dependence of being able to buy, products at Take a Lot, and really being able to see the convenience of that. And so whilst that has been something that has been good, and we've been able to employ a lot more people. One of the things that we don't mention is that, for instance, at Take a Lot, we employ a number of young people who just have a matric. All we ask for is that they don't have a criminal record. So when you go into, any of our DCs, our distribution centers, you'll find a lot of young people who just have a matric, and but they are able to have careers. And right now, what we are focusing on is ensuring that we can be able to grow those young people beyond where they are, for them to have access to more digital skills so that they can actually grow and become real players in this industry. But so with that has been something that has been good to see, that whilst we have been growing, we've also been investing within these organizations to make sure that they are more meaningful. And it's something different from the rest of our DCs in the rest of the world. So in other parts of the world, for instance, in Eastern Europe, whereas, and there you'll find that we have a DC that's probably 3 times the size of what we'll have in one DC of Take a Lot here in South Africa. But you won't find lots of people. What you'll see is machines. Machines going around and doing the rudimentary work that needs to be done. In South Africa, our approach is different because we realize that we have a lot of young, unemployed people. We have a lot of people that are employed to come in and they work all of those lines. And so whereas you'll see a lot of people in our DCs here, in the rest of the world you won't. You'll just see machines and maybe 2 or 3 people walking around. So how we have employed it, for us, it hasn't just about been success that goes into capital, which is made available to shareholders, and that is something that we focus on. But we have also invested in South Africa, ensuring that we're employing South Africans, ensuring that we are growing our businesses in South Africa. But what we have seen is that there is still room for so much more growth. If we could see more people having access to, real smartphones, as opposed to just, a mobile phone with just basic services, but having smartphones, people having access to capital to be able to, play a role, on a lot of these services that are available on smartphones. But one of the things that we've also done at Take a Lot is that we've also started the township economy, where we have said that we want to bring in a number of our entrepreneurs from the township. So the Makumalo or Mamoepe, who used to be on a street selling her product there on the street, we are encouraging them to come onto our platform so that they can sell those products on a national basis. And so you're having these micropreneurs being able to come on and becoming more significant players and seeing the scale of their businesses grow. And when you have that situation where entrepreneurs are able to come onto a platform, the extent to which they're able to see their businesses grow is unbelievable. They go from selling, 10 whatever products to suddenly selling thousands of products. And then you have to look at, ensuring that you're able to help them in terms of, credit. And that's something that, our business in Brazil, iFood, in LATAM, iFood has done very well in providing access to credit for entrepreneurs, etc., on their platform. And this is what is important. But so overall, it has been about just that consistent growth, but also keeping in mind the developmental aspects of our nation, and putting that as being front of mind as well for our business.
When you mentioned the township economy, it's been around, it's thriving. Like if you go into the townships and you see, like you say, Omakumalo selling on the side of the street, that has been happening for so many years. It's just that I find that maybe they've been overlooked a lot. So if you've got organizations like Take a Lot taking an interest and providing the necessary frameworks or skills and assistance, then I suppose that's a start. That's a good way to start, and to give people a better platform to an exposure. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Because then they'll start to understand the issue of logistics for their products, the cost of logistics. They'll start to understand the importance of marketing their products. There's different aspects because they start to operate as a formal business, instead of an informal business. And then they're able, it becomes a legacy. This is now a business that can be handed over to another member of the family to continue with when that founder is no longer able to continue with, or maybe to sell it to another entrepreneur, and this is how you create capital and value in our economy.
And Phuti, what if we look at, how would you say AI can actually shape the future of the online marketplace? What is what is Naspers and Take a Lot doing around that? Like they bringing AI to better improve services or the products that they provide to the customers.
Yeah, so we are using AI in getting the market insights, in ensuring that we can have effective delivery systems. There's a number of different ways in which we are using AI, and it's really playing a pivotal role in ensuring that we can be able to get products out, and the right products out to consumers. And so that's been a big part of the business. And our team has really, and I spoke about, the team that we have. They've really been focused on ensuring that all of our businesses are able to do this. And so the area that Fabricio Blois, our Group CEO, has introduced is in ensuring that we can operate as ecosystems. So, for instance, if I look at iFood, or I could mention Swiggy, but let me mention iFood. With iFood, I've mentioned the fact that whilst they're a food delivery business, they also are providing credit to entrepreneurs, are also able to provide insights to those entrepreneurs on the platform, to ensure that those sellers are able to, gain more insights, and to be able to provide the best products to their consumers at the right times, because consumers don't always have access to the ability to purchase. So you understand when is the best time for them to purchase a particular type of product. And, so it's really helped us significantly. And then also making sure that rudimentary tasks that are best operated by a machine are then done by machines. So it could be, for instance, if it's in a media business, editorial work that can take a person hours to go through. I remember just from school, when you are going through a document, you actually start to miss certain things because you've been looking at this document for so long. But through the use of, machines, you're able to get absolute 100% accuracy to make sure that what you're producing is of the right quality. But it does require continuous improvement. So with all of our machines that we use, we are making sure that there is that continuous improvement of them in terms of the results that they can also produce.
Mm. And if we just continue on the online marketplace
Yeah.
space, we're seeing other like global players also launching in SA, and we've got the Chinese players also providing their e-commerce sites, access to the e-commerce sites for the local consumers. What do you make of that activity in that space where we're seeing a lot of, it's quite active now. We've customers or consumers have more choice now. Yeah.
So I think it's a very good thing. It's good for consumers to have more choice, but I think what's important is the fact that we are all operating on a level playing field. That as organizations, we are ensuring that we are all playing our role as operators here in South Africa. And so, in the same way that a Take-A-Lot is employing South African people, is investing in South Africa, is paying taxes in South Africa, we would expect that our competitors operating in South Africa are also doing the same. That is how you level the playing field. However, in terms of competitiveness, that is the right thing. We ought to compete against each other. That's for the benefit of the consumer. But we need to make sure our regulators, their responsibility is to ensure that the playing field is level. So we shouldn't have a situation where some of us are constrained, and yet others are able to play, in a different, way. So it's been good to see our regulators tightening a bit in terms of one of our competitors who appeared to be operating differently. But I think overall, in our engagements with the Competition Commission, for instance, it's clear to us that ultimately it is about ensuring, firstly, that our consumers are getting the best products and services, but also that small and medium-sized enterprises are able to come into this industry. I think their concern was that potentially we were kind of stopping other small and medium-sized enterprises from being able to become players. And, we've been able to reveal the fact that actually our business is, we actually create the ability for small organizations to be able to come and grow and scale much more on our platforms. If I look at, for instance, Auto Trader or Property 24, where we have, as an example, reduced or removed fees for some of the entrepreneurs coming onto the platform for the first time, those sellers, and ensuring that they can be able to, as they grow, then be able to just to start paying fees like others. So we've really done everything that we could in terms of ensuring that we are creating a level playing field for our sellers, and all that we hope for from our regulators is that as we are, running our businesses, our platform businesses, that it can be a playing field that is the same for all platform economics businesses in South Africa.
Okay. And if we're looking at, looking at the investment landscape and some of the geopolitics that we're seeing unfold, and we know that South Africa took over the presidency, the G20 presidency, and that's coming up in November, but a lot of events are happening in the lead up to that. What does it mean for the country to have taken over the G20 presidency, and what is Naspers' role in that, and how are you guys involved?
So we are very excited about South Africa, having the role of running the G20 this year in 2025. And we're also very excited about our role in the B20, where I'm chairing the Digital Transformation Task Force. And on that task force, I have just over 100 members, but I have co-chairs with me who come from the industry. So, my co-chairs are different competitive international organizations like Google and other organizations. And they also have Vodacom local organizations like Vodacom on there represented, and the CEOs of those organizations are co-chairs. And so it's really been great to see how at a time when South Africa was going through the engagements with the United States, business continued.
Mm.
So from a business perspective, we continued with what needed to be done.
Yeah.
It was really, really that was something that I found very, very comforting. It was incredible to see how organizations and even leaders, I'm just trying not to mention names, leaders of organizations that were very involved in politics in another country. Their organizations were actually they are on my task force as well. I feel like I'm talking in.
You could tell us, Phuti.
But so it has really been wonderful to see all of us as international tech organizations focusing on getting the work done. And what has that been? So we started off with working on the policy document. And our policy document has been focused on 4 areas. Looking at the area of digital public infrastructure, DPI, and ensuring that so through DPI, you have the public and the private sector working together to ensure that, for instance, the passports or different forms that we have engagement between the public sector and private sector are available. But ensuring that the information that is available there is done in a respectful and responsible way. So DPI has been an important area there, the digital public infrastructure, and then also looking at the area of connectivity.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that in South Africa and being on the board of Vodacom, just through reading, we all know that our mobile telephony companies have been focused on connectivity, and also our government has ensured that our mobile telephony companies are also investing in rural connectivity. There's still more that needs to be done there, but we need to ensure that people have access through connectivity. And then the other area has been through digital skilling,
Okay.
ensuring that we can have as many young people digitally skilled as possible, so that they can be real players in the industry, because the African continent is still very much behind when I look at other markets in the rest of the world, in the world of AI. And then the fourth one has been AI ethics. And so these have been the 4 areas that we've been focused on. We've now completed our policy document, and we've submitted it to the leadership of the B20. And all of us have completed our policy documents. And so the next phase now, the phase that we are currently in, is advocacy. And so we are now running a whole host of different events where we are discussing a number of these policy issues, and really looking at how we can make sure that these things that we have discussed and written about actually come into real action. One of the things that we did in our work was that we came up with a legacy project, because we said, beyond what we are doing, let's have a legacy project that will exist beyond what we are doing now. And so we thought we'd come up with the idea of a fund for entrepreneurs, and it comes back to the issue that we spoke about earlier of early stage and startup organizations not having sufficient support. So we then came up with that idea. Now, obviously, having a fund that is part of the B20, next year it gets handed over to the USA. And so it is looking at how we could still have some kind of a role within that. But that will be within the realms of the B20. And so, with the advocacy process that we're busy now, it's been really, really wonderful to see. So we had our first one just a few days ago, where we actually had the minister, Minister Solimalatsi of the DCDT, the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. And he came there together with the DG of the DCDT. And we also had all other industry players who were there in the room, Vodacom, Telcom, the CEO of Telcom, Mr. Serame Taukubung, was the main speaker. And he had actually incidentally just visited China with the minister, Minister Solimaladzi, where they had been talking about how they could accelerate connectivity in South Africa. And it was really good to see just the plans that he has for Telkom that he wants to share with other telco players in South Africa. It was really wonderful to be able to engage with the minister. It's really been interesting. I think I really hope that we can have more younger ministers. When you look at Minister Solimalaji, or you look at our Minister of Durko as well.
Minister of Basic Education as well.
Minister of Basic Education. These younger ministers, I find them so much more hungry for solutions, getting things done. He made it very clear from the beginning. He said, no, reduce the formalities. Because when we were looking at the program, I was thinking, the minister's got to be there. We've got to make sure he can give his speech for like an hour first before everything starts. And he said, no, that's ridiculous. Remove that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not, and he was just on the panel. He was on the panel with with a number of executives that we had there from different organizations in the tech sector. And it was just, I loved to see that type of humility in a leader, that hunger for more knowledge, more work, more results for South Africa. And so it was really inspiring to see that, but also the engagement between that panel and the whole audience. I mean, we were like talking the whole time, and I felt bad for Fifi Peters, who was the one who was moderating the panel, and Fifi was trying to manage her panel, and we were all raising our hands because we all had comments for the panel, and so it was a great advocacy session, and then we're going to be having other advocacy sessions, and I think all of us are really focused on ensuring that we can really create a change for South Africa, for the African continent. And that's been the difference with the G20 being held by South Africa, the last Global South country to host the G20, is that there's been a real focus on ensuring that it's not just South Africans, but African people that are running this G20, B20. So all of us within our different teams have ensured that we have that diversity. So whilst as a B20, you'll have people from, so for instance, on the DTTF, the Digital Transformation Task Force, I have people from India, from China, from everywhere, all the G20 countries. But I also have a number of people from the African continent as well. And it's really been good for us to be able to all engage on these issues meaningfully. Lastly, is that I've really, really been happy that we've been able to engage well with the G20. Seeing the engagement between the B20 and the G20 is something that has been really of vital importance. I've also been happy to note, I've had discussions with the DG of the DCDT, and it's been interesting to see that the 4 areas that I spoke about, of digital skilling, of all of data ethics and connectivity, and DPI, are all areas that they're also focusing on, with a little bit of differences here and there. And both of us have focused on small and medium-sized enterprises as well. So it's really been good to have that engagement. But it all comes with the quality of leadership that you have. So having a minister like Minister Solimalaji has really been very helpful.
And Phuti, I hope that all of it, the discussions move to where things are actually implemented and we'll see change. And like you mentioned, connectivity is a big area that needs focus. Also, like with AI ethics, as AI evolves, there needs to be more on that. What happens next? So you said you'll hand it over to the US.
So we hand over to the United States. So when when we hand over to them, they will then run with it next year. So from in November we hand it over. They'll then hand over in November, the next November, 26. I think I don't want to mention the wrong country, but so we, each of us within the G20, handle it for that period of time. And what we hope is that whilst a lot of our recommendations are global south focused, what we hope is that they will be taken seriously. Because for the world, for the group, the G20 countries to be successful, you need the global south to be a real participant. And for us to be real participants, we need these areas to be dealt with. These areas of connectivity, of ensuring that our young people have access to digital literacy, etc. So we really hope that that will continue to be focused on. And it's also been good that we have been working with different leaders within the USA who have been part of our conversations. And so, despite everything that we read about in the media, when it comes to work, things are happening. Things are getting done.
And Phuti, just to hear from you in terms of, where do you think our next investment as a country, investment opportunities lie? Like, what does the geopolitical, what we're seeing in terms of the geopolitical landscape, does that have an impact on the investments that South Africa might attract or is looking to attract?
Yeah. So I think it will depend largely on how we respond to the changing landscape. And it is a vast number of changes that are taking place. I think a big one is the 30% tariff that South Africa is receiving from the United States. And how we respond will really tell how we can deal with it. And from what I've been able to see, so I was in a meeting where the Minister of the DTIC, the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, called a few organizations. And within that meeting, he was just sharing, what has been happening, because he's been leading the delegation in the engagements with the US. And, he wanted to hear from us as industry to see how we could respond and what our thoughts were on some of the initiatives that he had. And so we had that discussion, and so it's been good to see what the government has coming up with plans to support businesses here in South Africa so that they can be able to withstand this 30% tariff that we will be facing from the United States. Because at the end of the day, we still need to be able to engage with the United States. It's a very large economy, the largest in the world. And so we've always had a close partnership with the United States. And so, being able to continue to engage with them well is something that is of importance to us and for our organizations here in South Africa, for them to be able to continue to be thriving employers of people. We need to provide them with support. So the DTIC minister has come up together with business, with a number of solutions. Obviously, there will still be issues to be dealt with from time to time. But I've really enjoyed the manner in which there has been engagement between government and the private sector in looking at solutions to deal with the challenges that we are facing as a nation. Yeah.
And Phuti, as we wrap up, I just want to hear from you. Are you bullish about South Africa's trajectory as well as, and the tech ecosystem? What are your thoughts on that?
The fact that I am here The reality is that all of us, both you and I, could be in any part of the world. We choose to be here. And it's because we believe that there are solutions that can be put in place in South Africa. I was giving a speech last night, and I was mentioning that and I had just been sharing with them just a few issues that I thought were critical for us to be looking at, which were impacting on our economy. But I was saying to them that I remembered that, like, over 15 years ago, I had given a speech where, for me, it felt like, okay, now this is it. And these are the issues that we're facing. But every year there's new issues that we're facing. And as South Africans, I've really been glad to see how we have been able to work through issues and come to a point of being able to resolve issues. But I do believe now that at this time where, through the changing geopolitics, relationships are changing, new dynamics are created, and new partnerships are potentially formed. It is a time where we can potentially create other solutions. But the first thing that we as a nation need to do is to make sure that we're working as one, having the public sector and the private sector working together for solutions. We cannot continue to be working separately. We need to do what I spoke about, which is my group CEO, Fabricio Blois's focus on creating ecosystems. Ecosystems, where we as the private sector can be engaging with the public sector to say, this is the problem area. This is how we deal with it. And these are the types of organizations and people that are needed to deal with this issue, and looking at it on a number of different fronts. And this is something that would not be new to us. It's already started. So, for instance, we are members of BUSA, the Business United South Africa. And as members of BUSA, BUSA has been involved in a process of ensuring that there's continuous engagement between the private sector and the public sector. And so we've looked at issues of roads, of energy, of water, just ensuring that we are able to come up with solutions, but having more of that engagement and stopping this silliness of government and public sector not working and then silos together.
Yeah,
We can't afford to have silos. We can't afford to have that. We need to ensure that we are creating a better future for our young people, because that better future for our young people is a better future for us.
And thank you, Phuti. That was a nice way to wrap up our conversation. I appreciate your time, and we're thankful to have you here with us to share all your thoughts and comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Phuti Mahanyele-Dabengwa. She is the CEO of Naspers South Africa. For more on these videos, click here.